Hi, my name is Junior Gomez and I'm an artist in Charlotte, North Carolina. I recently took a trip to Thailand to gain inspiration for my art and myself. If you're ever interested in going to Thailand or wanting to know more about the country and the culture, make sure to watch this video and subscribe to my channel to watch all my art process videos and anything related to art. People always ask me, why Thailand? What was the reason why? Why did you want to go there? And I say, why not? We've all seen the movies, we've all seen the pictures, we all have that friend who visited Thailand, and we've been extremely jealous. As a kid, I was always interested in Asian culture. I'm talking about across all of Asia, Japan, China, Thailand, all the food, the flavors, the culture, the history of their land always drew me closer to wanting to visit. And when I was a kid, I remember having Buddhist beliefs in the way I thought, and I wanted to understand more. So Thailand has always been a place that I've always wanted to visit. As a young kid, I always wanted to go and see the culture, interact with the culture, and see what was the country all about. I've never visited Asia, so it was a perfect time to go and visit. Going to Thailand was semi-difficult. There was a lot of restrictions, and you had to get a QR code, you had to take a PCR test before leaving and upon arrival, and quarantine for your first 24 hours and make sure you tested negative in order to travel the country freely. The day that I was going to Thailand was very, very tricky and tiresome. 5 hours before my flight, one of my flights got canceled, and it was extremely rough. I am extremely happy that I was able to catch it and find a way to call the airline and move my air tickets around so that I can travel to Bangkok that day. I had to travel to Atlanta, from Atlanta, go to Houston, Houston to Germany, and then Germany to Bangkok. It was 32 hours of travel, but it was all worth it because when I got to Bangkok, I was extremely excited that I was able to just land there and just be a part of the presence of Thailand, and I was welcomed with open arms. Arriving to Bangkok was something that I've always dreamed of. I've always thought about it, right? When I was younger, I always used to think of going to an Asian country or any type of country. Whenever you travel, you're just so excited to travel. But I was traveling to a place that I've always wanted to go. Arriving to Bangkok, there was a lot of mayhem in the airports. I was trying to figure out where I needed to go and what I needed to do, just because you had reservations to hotels that took you to place to get your COVID test, and then you had to go to your hotel to quarantine. But upon arrival, the heat was just so intense. Humidity, heat, and just everything just on you. As we left the airport, there was so many, cars just driving on the streets. I pictured something similar to that, but not to the extent of what I saw. I call it organized chaos, where everyone was just driving chaotically, but it was in a sense organized, where everyone respected each other and knew where everyone stood. So no one ever got upset with each other, but that's just how everyone drove. We made it to my hotel where I had to quarantine for 24 hours. A little less because I got my test results fast pretty quickly. So I was able to explore Thailand that day, and I was just extremely happy to just roam around Thailand, see everything that I wanted to see in the course of 5 days. And I'll tell you what, that city is filled with so much energy, so much life, and just this buzz that it's undescribable through words. You just have to experience it. One thing you immediately see is the king. The king is plastered everywhere around Bangkok, Chiang Mai, all around Thailand, and the king is very revered. So anyone who speaks bad about the king, that's a no-no. You just don't do that. You can either get in trouble with the law or they will come find you somehow, some way. Another thing that I learned while I was out there was that when you go into the workplace on Monday, everyone wears yellow to praise the king. Pretty crazy. For our culture, we just don't do that here, but kind of cool to understand and see. One thing about the king too, he's on every bill that you see here. So their money is called baht, and this right here is a 20 baht. Let's see if I can get it in the camera there. Yep, this is a 20 baht, and then this right here is a 50 baht. This is a young version of the current king, and he is plastered just like this everywhere all over Bangkok and everywhere in Thailand. Yeah, so if you ever go to Thailand, don't speak bad about their king because you can get in trouble. But one thing that really stuck out to me as I was traveling around Bangkok was how abstract the city is, how abstract the buildings and the architecture. So I'm not sure if they have any zoning laws, but from what I saw, buildings and the architecture there are almost formed in whichever way they want. It's almost as if you're walking through a gallery of just these buildings that are just formed differently. Another thing that I observed was how they preserved nature and how they wanted to express the nature through their buildings. So they didn't work through the nature, they actually worked around it to have it form around the buildings. So as if you're walking down Bangkok, you would see these massive vines growing on the side of the building, and they were actually preserving it instead of chopping them down. The temples in Bangkok were very, very cool, very intricate, and filled with history, so much history that you couldn't understand any of it unless you had a tour guide. I unfortunately didn't have a tour guide. I went to these temples on my own, and it was very fun. It was very cool to see it. I wish I had someone there to kind of explain the stories, but there was just so many stories that you couldn't really get to, I guess, even understand any of it because there was just so much history behind all of it. But a lot of the things that I observed was colors such as reds and blues, a lot of golds, very, very rich and vibrant colors. And a lot of these temples had statues that had cool characteristics to these statues that none looked the same. So there were a lot of different things that I saw within these temples that really attracted me to them. They had a lot of Zen gardens within these temples that were just so serene and so beautiful. And it was just very, very cool to see and be a part of the environment, to walk through these temples, to see the Buddha, to see people respecting the Buddha and wanting to be a part of it. One of the coolest things about Bangkok that I experienced was the malls. So they have one of the most renowned malls there, and filled with technology, filled with life, filled with culture, filled with, the streets of Bangkok within these malls. And a lot of these malls, what they wanted to create was an experience for people to come into these malls and basically spend an entire day there if you needed to. So I remember meeting up with one of my friends, and she asked, what's the extent of your trip? What have you been doing lately? And I said, I've been visiting malls. And she goes, well, that's what people in Bangkok do. We go to malls. And when I say that these malls are so intricate and filled with character, that some of these malls, there was one mall that had cities in different levels of the mall, almost having it a theme. One level was Tokyo, another level was San Francisco, another level was Paris, and it was just very, very cool to see that. There was this one mall called Icon CM where it was filled with so much life, filled with so much beauty that I could not fathom it. There was, the mall had a river flowing through the middle of it, where I was just, baffled to see there was a storefront in the middle of this river where you had to almost cross a bridge to go into it. There was also street food vendors in this mall where you could feel that you were outside in the Bangkok streets experiencing street food, but you were in a mall. Their bathrooms were spectacular. They were filled with so much color and different designs that, almost gave me so much inspiration to come home and create my bathroom to look exactly like it, because it was so cool. It was so fresh. And, their technology. So they had robots cleaning the malls. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen a robot move on their own, but they had robots cleaning the malls. They had all these cool things that I thought the Western side of the world was filled with technology, but we're almost catching up to Asia. We're almost catching up to the Eastern side of the world, because I think that's where the technology comes from. And then they're like testers there, and then they move along onto the West side of the world. Bangkok was filled with energy. It was filled with life. It was filled with art all over, through the city buildings, through the streets. And I am just, very happy that I was able to experience Bangkok as a whole and do the things that I did in the short time that I was there. So that was the first part of my trip. Now we're gonna move on to Chiang Mai, where I spent 5 days. Arriving in Chiang Mai, I was extremely excited because I already had 2 excursions planned out. My first one was hanging out with elephants, and my second one was visiting Deutsche Tepe. It was a temple on the top of the mountain, and it was beautiful. Both experiences were awesome, and I am just so happy that I was able to visit Chiang Mai. When I go back to Thailand, I am definitely gonna go visit Chiang Mai for a lot longer, because it was just such an inspirational and such a magical movement while I was up there. Chiang Mai was a lot laid back than Bangkok, so there wasn't a lot of moving streets and city cars and a lot of like different things just happening all around you. It was more laid back, which I really enjoyed. I was able to take everything in instead of my mind constantly being stimulated from everything that was going on around me. In Chiang Mai, everywhere you go, you're gonna see temples. Temples were everywhere, and it was such a delight because I could walk into any temple any given day and spend an hour there if I wanted to. There was temples where I stopped in and I just meditated for 5-10 minutes because it was something that you could do. And I was just very, very happy to be in that environment because it was very, very blissful. It was something that I truly was looking forward to, and I did it. I stayed within the walls of Chiang Mai, and in the walls, that's where they have their markets. These markets are just filled with street food vendors, and these vendors, they're selling octopus, they're selling chicken, they're selling pad thai, and all this incredible food that was just so tasty and yummy. My favorite dish that I had in Thailand was, I called it TFC, Thai fried chicken. It was so good. I probably had it 2 times a day, if that. It was just so good. I can't wait to have it here in the United States. Chicken is my favorite food, so having it there with their taste and their, their culinary expertise was very cool. In Chiang Mai, there's these markets that go up and down the streets, and there's ones called Sunday Market, where you just walk along, you get to meet artists, you get to see a lot of vendors selling ice cream, people giving massages out on the streets. So it was very cool. It was very nice to see, and I was very happy that I got to see all of it. The elephants was such a magical experience. I did not know what to think before I arrived to see the elephants. It was magical. That's the only word that comes to mind when I think about these creatures. They were so immense, filled with so much character, so much life. Hanging around these elephants for the entire day was just beautiful. And I'm just, so grateful that I was able to do it. The place that I went to, it was called Elephant Nature Park. They were more humane about treating their elephants. So they did not let people ride the elephants, nor did they let people do things that other people in Thailand or in any other places do to almost just get money off these elephants. So it was very nice to see that this sanctuary was taking care of their elephants, because these elephants, I can't believe that some people use them to make money off of. It's just, it was very sad to see in some places, but this sanctuary did a good job at making sure that they were taken care of, they were well fed, and all the money that, of course, we put into this excursion was there to feed the animals and to feed them because they needed to be fed. From what we hear is like elephants eat 80% of the day. That is wild. So you can imagine how much they're eating. There was this one elephant that did not want to stop eating. It was very funny and cute. We got to spend the day with them. We got to eat with them. So we fed them in the beginning. We got to interact with them and meet them. We hiked with them for about a mile, which is pretty cool, into the woods, or I guess the forest of their land. We got to feed them once more, and we got to eat a nice lunch, which was very, very tasty. And then we walked down with them one more time to the river where we bathed them. And that was so much fun. We got to really spend time with them, take pictures, and it was just a cool time just to experience all of that with them. One of my highlights of Thailand was meeting artists. I love interacting with artists. I love meeting new artists just because I get such a good vibe from meeting different creators, people who are doing the same thing that I'm doing. I actually get a sense of energy and a sense of love when I talk to artists and communicate and work with different artists. One artist that really stood out to me was this young boy. He was in Chiang Mai and he was on the street drawing elephants on these little pieces of paper. And I stopped and I started talking to him because they looked so cool. I had to buy one from him because one, I had to support an artist, and two, I just loved it. Like every single elephant that he drew was different in faces, in their character, and what he did. Another artist that I saw was Cal, and she's in Chiang Mai. I was so delighted to talk to her and just happy to speak with her co-worker who manages her gallery for her. If you see this video, thank you so much for your hospitality. We got to speak about marketing and how to market your art. So I'm so grateful that I got to meet other artists out in Chiang Mai. It was, definitely my pleasure, and I can't wait to see you again sometime down the road. My second excursion was Deutsche Tepe, which was a temple in the top of the mountain of Chiang Mai. And I got there at sunrise at 5 a.m. It was everything that I ever hoped for. I looked forward to this excursion the most out of all of them because I'm really into meditating. I meditate every single day, and I believe that it has been helping me in every single aspect of my life. So if you are ever interested in meditating, please take the time to do so. It just takes 5 minutes a day, and I promise you that this is gonna change your life for the better. And just understand that it is a life journey. It's not just one quick step that's gonna make you feel better. If you do it over and over repetitively, this is gonna help you throughout your whole entire life deal with any situations that you may need to and be present in this present moment. But Deutsche Tepe was very, very cool. I was able to walk in on monks chanting and doing their morning meditations, which was very cool to see. I was also able to tour the whole entire temple, where I got to see a lot of the storyline of, the Buddha, and understanding a lot of the characters of the Buddha statues that I didn't understand. This is a Buddha statue that I got in Chiang Mai. I was very happy that I got this at Chiang Mai, and I needed to get something there because this was one of my favorite places that I visited in Thailand. So I wanted to take something home to make sure that I never forgot this memory. There's a lot of characteristics within the Buddha that I wasn't aware of before going to Thailand. And I was just so happy that I learned a lot of these in that excursion that I went to in Deutsche Tepe. One of these characteristics are the ears. If you notice here, the ears are very big. And the reason why they're big is because this is a representation of listening rather than speaking. So being a good listener. Another one is the eyes. Eyes are always looking down, representing looking within. Another one is these dots around the head. So it's these little crevices that you see within the head. And what they're representing is all the problems, all that lie within human beings. But this right here is the fire of wisdom, being able to get over any of these situations, these problems, these anxieties, these depressions. So this is something that is definitely meaningful, that I definitely wanted to bring back to the United States, and I'm very happy that I did. While I was in Deutsche Tepe, I was able to see the sunrise, and seeing the sunrise was magical. You know, who doesn't like seeing a sunrise? I was able to see the sunrise over Chiang Mai through the clouds, and it was something that I would never forget. I'm so grateful that my tour guide took the time to spend time with me and answer all of my questions. He also took me to this temple called the Hidden Temple, which was a little below Deutsche Tepe, which was on top of the mountain. And this temple, of course, by the name, was hidden, but it was one of my favorite ones just because this temple was not known to many of the tourists, and not a lot of them knew where it was. But you can actually go there to meditate. You can go there to just spend some time and just take a look out in Chiang Mai and see how beautiful it is. One thing that I didn't get to see while I was in Chiang Mai was the Sticky Waterfalls. I heard it was about an hour away and just outside of Chiang Mai. I didn't get to see it because of my limited time there. But next time when I do go to Chiang Mai, I'm definitely gonna go see it. I just can't wait to go back and explore Chiang Mai for what it really is. I just got a glimpse of it. I'm so happy that I was able to visit Chiang Mai and see it, but I can't wait to go back and explore the city and other cities around it to another level. So my next stop is Phuket. That's the southern part of Thailand where you're gonna explore beaches, you're gonna explore more islands, and you're gonna explore more of the beach vibes. I arrived in Phuket around 8 p.m. that night, so it was a little late when I arrived to my hotel. I didn't know what to expect when I arrived to Phuket. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. All I heard was it's more of a party vibe in the place where I was staying. I stayed in Patong Beach. If you haven't heard of Patong Beach is where all the party seers and party goers go to, just because it's more of that type of environment. I wanted to stay there because I wanted to experience it, to say that I've done it. And not that I'm a party at all, but I just wanted to experience it. I stayed just at the edge of Patong Beach where I was just away from the sound and the noise and all the chaos. But it was very cool to see, to walk throughout the day, to see the beach, walk the path on where the beach was. I got to see a lot of the boats that were just parked on the water. There was a lot of street vendors right outside and a lot of businesses right along that strip. So it was very cool to see. I was more excited to go and visit the islands off of it, such as PP Islands. So that was extremely exciting for me. I was so happy that I got to see this. I only got to see these in pictures and in videos, and I'm finally here. I'm finally able to travel there, see it for what it was, and it was just beautiful sights, beautiful water. I got to swim with fishes. I actually got to see 3 sharks, not big ones, but 3-foot ones. But that's just very cool to see that I swam with sharks in the water. The food in Phuket was very similar to everywhere we went. So everywhere you go, you're gonna see street food vendors out. And in Phuket, one thing I did like, they had these pockets of street food vendors where they just took over a whole section and you could just have different options to eat. You had fried chicken, my favorite. You had pad thai. You had a lot of seafood. I once had this lobster. It was just massive. And it was just so great to have all this food available to you whenever you wanted. And the fruits. So the fruit was just a different level. There was this one fruit called Mangosteen. I was absolutely in love with it. I wanted to have it every single day. And it was just so delicious. Imagine a mango packed into this little plum-like looking thing that just tasted just so juicy and just so perfect with the amount of flavor. It was one of the best things I ever had. I can't wait to go back to have hundreds of these little things. So I was in Phuket for about 4 days. I was very happy to be there, to see it, to experience it, to go to PP Islands, but I was ready for my next stop, which was Koh Samui. Koh Samui is a different island off of Thailand, and I was just happy to go to a different vibe, a different scene, more relaxed feel than Patong Beach, and I was just ready to experience it. I had no idea what to expect in Koh Samui. I just knew that I was going to the beach. But my room view in Koh Samui was something out of paradise. I did not expect to see what I saw when I walked into my room. I got this beautiful view of the beach, just crystal clear waters, It was everything that I could have hoped for. It was almost as if I was dreaming, as if I was just seeing something out of a movie, but it was real life. It was in my view. I got to wake up every day to see it, and it was just beautiful. Koh Samui is definitely a place that I would want to go visit again. I got to see waterfalls. I got to spend a couple of hours there with my friend Lily, who currently lives in Koh Samui, and it was just a beautiful time. It was just wonderful to see that and just to experience the culture there. So I got to get an actual feel of Koh Samui from someone who's lived there for a little bit. And my friend took me around to see some of the malls there. She also took me around to eat some of the local food, which is really, really good. And eat, of course, my favorite, mangosteen. Mangosteen was just so perfect and everything that I wanted. In Koh Samui, I stayed in Fisherman's village, which was a village just north of the island. And it was very cute. A lot of local shops, a lot of restaurants to just walk up and down the street. It was a very cool scene. And as I said, it was just beautiful to be by the water. You can see the water at all times. If you wanted to walk onto the beach, you can anywhere you wanted from that strip where I was staying. And it was just a beautiful scene to be there. It was very hot, but the heat didn't bother me because I love the heat. So it was very nice to be around that environment and that temperature. One thing in Koh Samui that I loved was that I pictured myself living there. I could be there for about 2 to 3 months and actually exploring my art skills and my talent. It was something that brought me a lot of comfort and a lot of ease. And I started actually looking at real estate there to see if this was actually ever possible. You know, why wouldn't I want to be on the beach for about 3 months out of the year and just stay there and just do some type of a residency? It was very beautiful to see. I hope I can experience it a lot longer next time. I was only there for 3 days. The next time I go, I'll definitely stay in Koh Samui for a lot longer, and just, excited to go back at some point later in my life. After Koh Samui, I went to Bangkok, and that's where my trip ended. I was ready to go home. It's been 3 weeks, and I was extremely exhausted, but also filled with so much excitement, so much love, and so much gratitude because I was able to do something that I've been hoping for all my life. And here I was, I finally did it. So my trip came to an end. I was ready to go back home, and that's what I did. Like I said, I can't wait to go back to Thailand. If you want to go to Thailand, if you want to visit, I hope that my video was enjoyable for you and you got a lot of knowledge and insight as to seeing if this is a trip that you want to take. But my advice to you is, yes, do it, enjoy it, love it, because Thailand is somewhere that I definitely want to go back to visit. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks.